Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C, and we're talking real talk sports, and we do it every Monday through Friday from the 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we do it worldwide, Big C. And I want to thank you again for calling in from the East Coast, as you always do. Today is March 31st, 2016, and Big C, as we always know, you got about 40 years in the business, and people keep asking me, who is Big C? So I tell them he's someone who's been around the block a long time, so you can speak for yourself.
Well, Big C is a guy that's sitting back east today in this rain showers where you guys always got all that beautiful sunshine in California.
California love.
I didn't work on my tan today, Charlton. I'm a little upset.
Hey, African Americans tan too, huh? Just so you know, it's all good.
At times I've been known as sexy jockey, you know.
Okay, well, we progress from here. And as you know, speaking of sexy, one of the great actors that has also been a great bodybuilder, not only a bodybuilder, but a governor of the great state of California. You know a lot about Hollywood. Arnold Schwarzenegger is someone you're very fond of, Big C, and his success.
The Governor, you know, this was a man who was dedicated, Charlton, 7-time Mr. Universe, 7 consecutive years. And that's an unprecedented number. He was only eclipsed by the great Lee Haney years later. Now, Arnold Schwarzenegger, took sports, transcended it into acting, Charlton.
Yeah.
He broke off in the late 70s, early 80s in a movie called Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah.
When he made his acting debut. But he has gone across the range in acting. If you recall, he was in the original movie Predators along with Carl Weathers. Of Rocky fame, who started his career as a linebacker, Charlton, with the Oakland Raiders under the great Al Davis, a pioneer in football. But he also did the Terminator series where he had 3 movies in that. Yeah. And he's done a lot of it. He played Twins with Danny DeVito. Yeah. He played Kindergarten Cop. He's played the gamut in Hollywood, Charlton. But even more profound is that he became governor of California, Charlton, when you look at that. That you go from a bodybuilder in Austria to the governor of California, one of the most highest positions in the United States. California has the 3rd largest economic base in the world.
Amazing.
So if it was his own country, it'd be number 7 in world economics. And he ran that country of California for 8 years, Charlton.
And when you think about Arnold Schwarzenegger, when I think about how built he was, we know he did it all natural, too. He was 100% natural, Big C, in his bodybuilding.
He ate all that good Austrian beef and everything. It was all grass-fed,
When he said, "I'll be back," we know he was talking to his trainer because he had to get more hyped up for the next weightlifting competition. But
he took yolk to a whole new level, and it wasn't egg yolk,
Well, when you think about it, though, when I watch around the NFL, and we'll get into some of the NFL later, but you mentioned he was in with Carl Weathers, who played for the Raiders in the Rocky sequel, and we talked about Sylvester Stallone, and I met the gentleman actually that was I think his name is Scratch. I'm forgetting his name, but he's a guy that would fix all the cut and the bleeding. The cut man. So I met him actually at an MMA fight up in Sacramento, but that just shows the wealth of talent that's out there, not only in Hollywood, but as an athlete. Arnold Schwarzenegger, just hard to match what he's done as a bodybuilder and then governor and actor. Just so many things to say about him, Big C.
Well, it just shows when preparation and opportunity meets that you can have success. When you look at him as a bodybuilder, that showed his dedication, Charlton, because you just don't pile those muscles on top of each other standing in the mirror.
Exactly.
You have to spend some time in the weight room that's dedicated several hours a day to get to the physique he had. And he maintained that for over a decade at a high competition level.
Yes.
But, when you look at his acting career, he acted with Sylvester Stallone also. Yeah. Jason Stamos, you talk about these guys all being together and how they cross-reference with each other over the years.
Yeah.
He has done it all. From, like I said, from a bodybuilder to leading the 7th largest economy in the world in the state of California, to his acting career. And he's just been a great individual.
Well, thinking about great individuals and having a stamina, this segment is also sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealer, the home of the Escalade. You can only get it there new, and when you go and test drive it, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. And also, Big C, I know when you talk about Hollywood and you talk about sports and how ESPN and Fox Sports, they're all doing the same thing along with the Charlton and Big C. I look at some of the stories that come out, and your thoughts on how reporting is going in sports into more tabloidism, Big C, is that what you're saying?
Well, it puzzles you, Charlton, with the state of the talking heads now on television.
Yeah.
When you look at them, this tabloidism, it's almost like walking through the grocery store, looking at the papers that are there that you know are just sensationalized.
Yeah.
Here it is, you have all these guys with a wealth of information, all the highlight reels in the world, Charlton. When you're talking about the NBA, the number one story in the NBA is in the Lakers locker room. A team with only 16 municipal wins this year, okay?
Yeah.
16 wins. You have two teams that are making history in Golden State and San Antonio. These two teams potentially will be the only two teams in NBA history to go through an entire season undefeated at home, Charlton. But the gossip in the LA Laker locker room with the talking heads is greater than the true stories in the NBA. It's almost like, Charlton, they don't have anything to talk about. They can't create a story. So when you listen to them, it's almost like being at a bar and 3 or 4 girls get up together and say, let's go to the bathroom and talk about the cute guy over there. That's what it's reminding me of now.
Well, I know. I used to get harassed all the time when I would have the same people trying to hit on me, Big C, back in the day. At least in my mind, that was the case. But also, when you talk about that, because the NHL is not the most popular sport in the United States, but I think for the first time in the NHL, we're looking without having playoffs without Canadian teams, Big C.
Charlton, the NHL is the backbone of Canada history and sports, okay?
Yeah.
Part of the original 6 was in Canada when you had Toronto, Montreal. They were part of the original 6 teams in the NHL. And for the first time since 1970, there's not going to be an NHL team in Canada hunting for Lord Stanley's Cup.
Yes.
And that's almost like an abomination that, this is the history and the legacy of a country, and they can't participate in their most storied and hallowed sporting event, the Stanley Cup playoffs, Charlton.
Yeah.
And so, when you look at that's really going to hurt the NHL's popularity up north, because how many viewers are going to be paying attention when you don't have Montreal, Toronto, Winnipeg, Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver? When you think about Edmonton, that's where the great Wayne Gretzky played.
Yeah.
In Edmonton, Charlton. And, they won 5 consecutive Stanley Cups when Wayne was there in the 80s. And you think about the historic Montreal Canadiens with Guy Lafleur and Gordie Howe, these players, and in Montreal, the historic Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
None of these teams are in the playoffs, and so that really hurts. It would almost like being in the NBA when you're sitting here and you look at the Lakers not being in the playoffs, the Celtics not being in the playoffs. Those type of teams, when they don't make the playoffs, the Philadelphia 76ers, the league is worse off without those players being. Can you imagine when Magic was playing, the Lakers not being in the playoffs, when Dr. J was playing, that the Sixers not in the playoffs, when Michael Jordan was playing, that the Bulls and even Boston with Larry Bird, if those teams were not in the playoffs, what would the state of the NBA have been, Charlton?
Well, see, Big C, and that's a good point, too, because when you bring up Canadian sports, and the Grey Cup has existed over 102 years, I think, but the NFL Super Bowl is only lasted
113 years.
113 years.
113 years.
That's incredible. Now, the NFL's only been around for 50 years. We just had our 50th Super Bowl here in San Francisco.
That's just the 50th Super Bowl. The NFL has been around for about 87 years.
87 years.
But the Grey Cup has been around 113 years. The Super Bowl has been around 50 years. So, I mean, when we talk about history and longevity, those are the things that people forget about it. And like I said, when I'm listening to the talking heads, and they pay no homage to Canada as far as hockey goes, about how the NHL playoffs would be less without a Canadian team in search of Lord Stanley's Cup this year. But to them, it's more interesting to talk about Nick Young, Iggy Azalea, who's dating who, who's chatting about who in a locker room, versus even talking about the Lakers, how bad they were last night. Kobe 1 for 7. But this chatter about what's going on in the locker room was more important than the Lakers winning their 16th game last night.
Well, see, and also when you think about asking the Lakers and they ask Kobe Bryant about what's going on with the team, he never brings up about the fact. It's a fact that he never decided to take less money the way Tim Duncan did in San Antonio to help them get better players and build more unity with the Laker franchise, because you're right, not seeing the Lakers at least competing. When you think about it, Golden State last night pulled out an overtime win up in Utah, which is a hard place to win, Big C. But you think about Utah has better basketball than Los Angeles. That doesn't make any sense. But as I get back into the NHL real quick, I want to bring up another point, because Americans understand that hockey's big in Canada. However, there have been some great athletes in Canada that transcended. They crossed the border and came into the NFL and played great football, from Warren Moon, Vince Ferragamo, Doug Flutie, and many others, Big C.
Yeah, I mean, Canada over the decades, Charlton, has been a feeding field for the NFL. It goes back, even Joe Kapp, who went to the Super Bowl, the number 4 Super Bowl with the Vikings versus the Chiefs. He started his career in Canada, in Winnipeg, and there's been a plethora of players over the years that have come into the league. If you look at Cameron Wake, the defensive end down in Miami, played in Canada prior to coming to the NFL. And there's been many others, Charlton, that have come down over the years, made an impact in the NFL, and people really didn't realize that they were from Canada. Let me give you 2 great coaches. Bud Grant went to 4 Super Bowls with the Minnesota Vikings, played and coached in Winnipeg. Marv Levy went to 4 Super Bowls with the Buffalo Bills, Charlton. Coached in Montreal. Also even coached Vince Ferragamo in Montreal prior to coming down to Buffalo, and they called it the K-Gun offense. All that was a Canadian Football League offense that he implemented in Buffalo, Charlton.
Yeah, and I believe the Canadian Football League, the CFL, they start their season right about summertime when the NFL is going to training camp. And I think when we talk about safety, and the commissioner brings up how we have to cut down on concussions, we have to make the game safer. I think you brought up some points in the past, Big C. The only way really to do that, when I look at some athletes right now that are competing in college for the NFL draft, they focus on guys that are 6'3", 6'5", 340-pound linemen. That's what's causing a lot of problems, because those collisions are difficult to deal with. Ultimately, they should talk about widening the field the way they do in the CFL. That means you can't have 340, 350-pound men. They're going to lower down the weight to about 300 pounds. That will lessen the impact for collisions, Big C. You think that's something that the NFL could look at and study as a way to keep the game safer?
The NFL has looked at that, Charlton, about, the players have outgrown the arena that they play in.
Yeah.
When you think about when the NFL field was designed over 100 years ago for football, a lineman, Charlton, would probably weigh 200 to 220 pounds.
Yeah.
That would be a lineman. That's a cornerback and a running back nowadays, Charlton. And when you have linemen that tip the scales at 350 pounds plus, and they can still run under a 5 flat 40, Charlton, that's scary. That's dangerous.
Yes.
And so that's where the impact collisions cause all this catastrophic brain damage as well as ligament damage, Charlton. The field has looked to be widened in the NFL and lengthened, just like in the Canadian Football League, but it comes down to pure economics. The NFL has looked at how many premium seats would we have to give up for player safety. Is that really worth it in a business that they're looking at that, the parts are always changeable?
Well,
There's not longevity in the NFL, and nor do the players, the owners care about that safety aspect. They care about that premium seat price, because if you widen the field, Charlton, you're going to lose 10 rows on each side of the stadium and even in the end zone. So now you're talking about losing 2,000 to 3,000 seats of premium seats. So that's a lot of revenue every game. They place revenue over player safety right now.
I agree.
They're never going to change the confines of the field.
Well, speaking of changing confines of the field, and this segment is sponsored by your Northern California BMW dealer, home of the ultimate driving machines. Go by and test drive the new 7 Series, the M7, known also as a 760 Li, over 600 horsepower of the ultimate driving machine. And tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. Now, Big C, we're talking about athletes and health and safety, and we talk about how players can get healthier and better. J.J. Watt, one of the best players in the NFL, he's telling us that he played last year with a herniated disc as well as some other injuries. And we talked about Arnold Schwarzenegger, and we talked about how guys have to put on bulk and they have to get bigger. And they have to do it naturally, right? It's all natural.
What's natural? The knife and the fork is the only thing that's natural with them, Charlton.
But you have him, Vernon Davis, a lot of other players. How do you keep guys like him healthier when they get paid $100 million to be 300 plus pounds, Big C?
Well, Charlton, it's about the quality of supplements that you take.
Yes.
That's how you get your strength and your bulk. It's the quality of supplements you take. I mean, you can always, ask Robert Ursay for advice.
Yeah.
As far as what supplements to
No, we don't want to ask him. We don't want to ask him for advice.
Most players are going to need some Oxycontin at one time. So the Colts organization never have to worry about being in pain. Even going through the painful season that they went through last year, they can always turn to their owner for relief.
Well, they keep for relief for him, like Oxycontin relief. Is that what you're saying, Big C?
Well, it's going to relax the mind and the body, Charlton.
That's funny. Well, think about something too. When we talk about NFL and players and the health issues, Colin Kaepernick today, he's going to stay in San Francisco. They have to give him that.
Charlton, was there ever any doubt? That's the story that the talking heads need. Yeah. They didn't want to deal with the realism. They wanted to say, like you and I had talked about, there's nobody coming out in the college draft that is taking you to 2 NFC championships, a Super Bowl, and is beating all the elite quarterbacks in the NFL, the Tom Brady's, the Aaron Rodgers, the Russell Wilsons, and Carson Palmer's up and down the list. He has done that, Charlton. He has proven that he can pass and run the ball. But you have to give Colin Kaepernick a supporting staff. They talked about Jeff Goff, the kid coming out of Cal, okay?
Yeah.
When was the last time he won a Pac-12 championship, Charles?
I think he hasn't.
Okay. So when was the last time he beat a top 10 team in the country, Charlton?
They beat Air Force, but not a top 10 team in the country, Big Z.
Okay, so when you're talking about the realism, the best quarterback in that conference, the Pac-12, Charlton, is a kid out of Stanford, okay?
Yeah.
Kevin Hogan.
Yeah.
This kid has won 2 Pac-12 championships. He's won the Rose Bowl. He's run a pro-style offense. He has a pro-style system and a head coach.
Yeah.
In David Shaw.
Yes.
He's the most NFL-ready quarterback, Charlton, in the Pac-12. You can draft Goff on potential, but if you're talking about a guy that's NFL-ready, that's Kevin Hogan. He's the second best, probably the third best quarterback in the Bay Area behind Kaepernick, the kid in Oakland, Carr, and now there's Hogan. He's the third best quarterback in the Bay Area, Charlton.
Well, ironically, Big C, and I love your point because I listen to so many Bay Area media people talking about how Colin Kaepernick fell off last year. He actually had surgery for an injury. But I want anyone in media to ask this question, whether it's Carson Wentz or Gabbard or anyone else they're talking about, and even Brock Osweiler, who's infamous right now. Kaepernick, the only 3 quarterbacks for the 49ers have reached the Super Bowl. Joe Montana, Steve Young, Colin Kaepernick. However,
and the great John Brody never got him to the NFC Championship. He got to the NFC Championship game one time against Dallas, I believe, in 1971.
Yeah.
But he never got any further than that.
Well, and you think about that, too. And you love talking about the $100 million quarterbacks, Big C. He beat Tom Brady in New England on the road. He's beaten Drew Brees. He's beaten Cam Newton in the playoffs. He's beaten the great discount double check Aaron Rodgers 3 times in the playoffs alone, Big C.
3 times. Matt Ryan out of the equation, and he makes $126 million. And he's probably knocked off Matthew Stafford along the way also, Charlton.
Yeah, and none of those players are being talked about being run out of town. So I just want people to keep in mind that if you're looking for the next NFL caliber quarterback that's going to get you to a Super Bowl, you already have him. He's in your back pocket. Now, on the other side of the fence, Big C, this is real talk too, because there's some people that feel that Colin Kaepernick kind of gave up on him once he was put to the bench by last year's coach, and that to me doesn't make a lot of sense. He was actually injured, but they wanted the guy to play when he was injured. They don't ask other players to do that, Big C. I think.
Dallas doesn't put Tony Romo out there with a broken clavicle, okay?
Exactly.
And every time they do, he's re-injured. But and that's another quarterback that Kaepernick is beat. But you look at Jim Thomasula, Charlton.
Yeah.
What is he doing today? Since he was such a great coach and the Niners paid him $14.1 million last year, what is his job description today, okay? That's what you look at and know if this guy is a quality head coach or not in the NFL. He is not coaching.
Yeah.
And, he is proven. When the Niners went to the last NFC Championship game against Seattle, when you look at their defense last year, 8 of their starters, Charlton, were not with the team last year.
Yeah.
8 of the starters from their last NFC Championship game was not with the team last year. And on the offensive side of the ball, Charlton, 7 guys were gone. So here was Colin Kaepernick out there playing with a cast of he didn't know who it was.
Yeah.
He had no receiving core. His key running back was gone, and Gore.
Yeah.
And so he was left out there saying, hey, put this together. You got a head coach that doesn't have the clue, but we're going to blame it all on you.
Well,
but now he has a coach who understands his talent.
Yeah.
Kelly, they brought him in just for that reason, Charlton, because of Kaepernick. That was a perfect fit, perfect marriage for both of them. Watch the success he has now in a new regime.
Well, I think also what's going to help the 49ers if they give Chip Kelly more of the reins and just tell Bulky to sit to the side because they have $53 million in extra money that they can play with, Big C. That $53 million, it doesn't matter who's playing quarterback if you land on his butt all the time. They need to rebuild their offensive line. And I know there's so much talk on some quarterback out of college that never played Division I ball, the guy Carson Wentz. The guy
look at Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
Look at him. This guy played Division III football. I'm not knocking any level of college football, but Division III. Okay, Alabama's practice squad can go out there and beat North Dakota State week in and week out.
Right.
The national champions, Alabama, they have so much depth on their roster. North Dakota State could not beat their practice roster. And Nick Saban would say that off camera, but he knows that's the fact. Carson Wentz, when you're playing against NFL defensive backs, now I'm trying to look and see how many NFL defensive backs are coming out of their conference.
Yeah.
How many NFL defensive linemen are being drafted out of their conference? How many NFL linebackers, Charlton, are being drafted out of their conference? And that's the key. How many NFL players that you're playing against? Now, I watched this pro day that they had on television.
Yeah.
Now, he was throwing against air, Charlton, and he was underthrowing, throwing wide on these guys that he played with. Now, how are you going to react when you got a 4-3 wide receiver sitting out there with a defensive back that runs a 4-2-5, breaking on the ball better than the receiver? Now, you couldn't hit wide open guys in a pro day,
right,
without any defense on the field.
Big C, remember Richard Pryor? Richard Pryor was talking about when he was going to become a boxer. He thought it was really good because he was in the ring and he was fighting this mannequin, the punching bag, and he was learning to stick and move and turn the cheek and stick and move again, go left hand, right hand. But he got into the ring, and he got into a ring with a real fighter, and it was a whole different game. You said, so Carson Wentz hasn't seen the types of players that you're going to see lined up across the line in the NFL, but these talking heads in San Francisco, they're acting like he would be better than the guy that took him to the Super Bowl, Big C.
Well, Charles, Carson Wentz, he could sit in the pocket and throw over defensive linemen that were 6'1", 6'2", because he was 6'6".
Yeah.
He didn't have his vision of structure. Now when he comes into the NFL and he's going to be facing 6'5", 6'6" defensive linemen that run the 40-yard dash faster than he does, it's a whole new day. And so that's the thing that people don't understand. When you look at small college quarterbacks, there hasn't been a great success level of these guys in the NFL.
Right.
It's a challenge. The speed of the game, and everybody will tell you that has come from college, whether it's a coach, whether it's a player, it's the speed of the game that's the most difficult thing to make up. If you're not speed ready when you get there, you're not going to get there once you already have arrived, Carlton.
Well, think about even across, you cover a lot of the East Coast. I look at Ryan Fitzpatrick, and threw 31 touchdown passes last year. I know he had the broken hand. Out of Harvard, played great football for the New York Jets. They still haven't signed him. I think he's asking for more money than what they want to give him. But I still think even Fitzpatrick is a better quarterback than someone like Goff or Wentz coming out of college, and even Cook out of Michigan State. I wasn't impressed with Cook in the game against Alabama where they were shut out. in the game against Iowa that Stanford blew out in the Rose Bowl where they barely put out a victory, Big C.
Well, Connor Cook is a joke at Michigan State, Charlton, and no disrespect to the young man.
Yeah.
But when you look at when he played against good defenses, when he played Ohio State, when he played Michigan, when he played Iowa, when he played Stanford, there was no productivity from this young man playing against NFL caliber defensive players.
Yeah.
And that's what we talk about in Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz reminds me of Blaine Gabbert.
Yeah.
Same body type, same look, same scariness against big guys out there. And then when you look at Jeff Goff, do you remember this kid that played at Notre Dame after this kid named he was drafted by the Cleveland Browns.
Was it Brady Quinn? Brady Quinn? Was it Brady Quinn?
Oh, yeah, Brady Quinn. Whatever happened to him? Who was the next?
I think he's on the NFL Network.
and then they had this kid called Jimmy Clausen.
Yeah, Clausen. Yeah, I remember Jimmy Clausen as well.
And that's who Jeff Goff reminds me of. He reminds me of Jimmy Clausen. He's the golden boy. I remember Mel Kiper. I thought he was dating him or something.
Mel Kiper.
He talked about him like it was his girlfriend or something, but he plays like a girl in the NFL.
I wonder how many people that Mel Kiper would get on television and talk as if he knows more than all the GMs and more than all the coaches. How many of those players that he's pushed so hard? I know they're paying him, so they got to have him say something. But he hasn't put together necessarily a winning NFL draft, Big C. A lot of that comes from just guys having the opportunity and fitting in the right system. So why so much credibility given to Kiper?
Charlton, last year, the NFL draft, of the 32 first-round players drafted, Kiper only got 13 right. Not in the position that they would fall in the draft. Of the 32 first-rounders, he only projected 13 of them.
So then why is he the guy that they always put up there as if we should listen to him? The GMs don't listen to him. In fact, a lot of the GMs don't even like him.
Well, I remember years ago, Bill Polian, when, Kiper wanted to challenge him.
Yeah.
And he drafted this linebacker out of the University of Nebraska, Trev Alvarez, back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And he said it was a terrible pick for the Indianapolis Colts. And Polian turned to him, it's like, when was the last time you drafted anybody? And he said it on television, and Kiper couldn't even find a gopher hole to crawl into because he was so embarrassed. So here it is, when you want to challenge an NFL team, NFL personnel staff, saying that they don't have a clue, that they wasted a draft pick on somebody, they're wasting time on him believing what he says. Anybody can pick up USA yesterday and say, hey, this is the projected picture of anybody in the draft. The draft is a crapshoot all the time, Charlton.
Well, then
it's guesswork. And the last great player that he had that couldn't miss, Jadeveon Clowney.
Yeah.
How many games have he played in the last 2 years, Charlton?
I think he's not even the second best guy on that line. We know J.J. Watt played injured and still had a better season than him last year. But again, with Kiper, because there's so much talent in college football. But as you talk about, Big C, all the time, in order to take a job from an NFL player, you got to help an NFL player get fired. And to me, it just doesn't make sense how everyone puts so much time and interest in draft day as if some kid out of college is going to be a better player than an NFL player that's already seasoned. I think there should be a lot more emphasis on the current players, whether they're being traded from team to team. That's more important and more of an indicator of success than someone in college, Big C.
Well, Charles, pay attention to what the New England Patriots are doing right now here in the offseason. The New England Patriots have signed 2 veteran tight ends. They signed 3 veteran wide receivers because they want people who understand the game, the speed of the game. They want people who can appreciate playing with Tom Brady. They're not looking for fans. They're looking for players that are capable of playing at the NFL level, and that's what Belichick is going out and doing, and his director of player personnel. They're going out getting proven NFL talent. And if you look at New England's history, Charlton, over the last decade with Tom Brady playing quarterback, when you look at the number of veteran players they bring in, whether it's the Marvin Harrison, not a Marvin Harrison, a Randy Moss, and the kid, 37, Harrison, the safety that they brought in from San Diego years ago, linebackers that they brought in the late Junior Seau, that they brought in receivers that have helped the organization. They were always picking up a veteran running back when they had their early Super Bowl runs each year. Their first 3 Super Bowls, they had a different tailback in each one of those. But that's what you have with a veteran player. You know what you're going to get out of them. The late Al Davis started that and built the Oakland Raiders on that just win, baby. So he would bring in cast-offs from other organizations, because these were NFL caliber players, not somebody he was hoping came in from the college rank. Yes, he did sprinkle those into the lineup, but he needed somebody that would make an instant impact in his organization. And that's what the Raiders did in the 70s and 80s, and that's what New England does today, Charles.
So you're saying they don't call Mel Kiper to see what his thoughts are, Big C, before they go and get another player?
I can guarantee you that Bill Belichick is not in Mel Kiper's telephone.
And as we close up this last segment, this segment is also sponsored by your Northern California Ford dealer. Go down and test drive the all-new Ford F-150. They build it for it tough, and tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. And also, Big C, as we close out, I know that you're big on golf. And some of the great things are happening in the golf season. It's just not the same without Tiger Woods, but I know we're coming up on the Masters, as well as Major League Baseball is hitting off. Your thoughts on the Masters? I know they're looking at Spieth, who won it last year. I miss it because we don't have a Phil Mickelson. We have McIlroy and Day, but even though it's the Masters, and they want to hype me. Jim Nantz wants to say, hey, he can't wait to get down to Augusta. There's just always a little bit missing when Mickelson is not going up against Tiger, Big C.
Well, Tiger personifies what the Masters is all about. He dominated that tournament through a decade. Bubba Watson has won every other year the past couple of years. So right now, I look at Bubba Watson being the favorite. The Vegas wants to look at Jordan Spieth because he had such a phenomenal year last year. They're still waiting on Roy McIlroy to break through and become that dominant golfer. Ricky Fowler, Jason Day, those guys will be in the hunt. But, I like Bubba Watson, a local boy out of University of Georgia. Yeah. So he's basically playing on his home turf. He knows Augusta very well. Like I said, he's won it twice in the last 5 years, Charlton. So I look at him being odds-on favorite. But just when the azaleas are blooming and it's a beautiful, magnificent golf course. I plan on going there at least for a day myself this year. But, when you go to the Masters, it's what personifies golf. Everything is perfect. The weather, the grounds, just a beautiful place, picturesque setting. Yeah. But, without Tiger Woods, Charlton, and if anybody, any sportscaster, if you gave them an opportunity to just sit down and talk off the cuff and just be real, Tiger Woods would be at the top of the list. Not Michael Jordan, not Roger Clemens, or anybody else, Magic Johnson. It would be Tiger Woods. He's been the most polarized, fascinating sports figure in the last 20 years because he changed the complexion, not just with the color, but he changed the complexion of a sport. He made the sport become appreciated. Well, and he made more money for every golf company than anybody else in history, Charlton.
Well, I still think it's so ironic that Hulk Hogan gets $125 million for having an affair with his best friend's wife and having that on tape. Tiger Woods loses $100 million because he was accused of the same thing, but it was not on tape. It was all just talk. It just doesn't make any sense. But also, Big C, we're out of time. This show goes by way too fast. Yeah, man, we're out of time. We gotta wrap it up. But we'll get you more on tomorrow and every Monday through Friday at the 5:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time hour. Charlton and Big C, we're doing real talk. We're doing it worldwide. Bienvenidos to our Latin American audience. And we'll catch you next time. Have a super fantastic day.